Good morning, everybody. I think we're going to get started here. Thank you very much for coming to this session. I have to say I'm thrilled with the number of people we have in the room after the gala last night. I didn't partake, but it sounds like it was a great evening. So anyway, thank you for coming out this morning. My name is Jennifer Gunning. I'm an Associate Director at the Canadian Institutes of Health Research for the HIV/AIDS Research Initiative at CIHR. And this morning we want to spend the next hour with you to really hear from you primarily. It's going to be a very interactive session because we wanted to take the opportunity of the CAHR conference this year to hear from some stakeholders to help us develop a new strategic plan for our HIV/AIDS Research Initiative. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the past, where we've been at CIHR, and then the majority of the session is really going to be about hearing from you. A little bit about CIHR. So we are the health research funding agency in Canada at the federal level. We receive our funding through the Government of Canada, and CIHR supports overall about over 14,000 health researchers and trainees across the country. Our organization is organized through 13 different institutes, each of which is led by a scientific director who is a real leader in their field. The institutes are part of the CIHR management team, and they really help set the agenda for health research across the country, across all areas. And you can see, looking at the institutes, they're really cut across a wide range of areas and different approaches to health research. The Institute of Infection and Immunity is particularly highlighted there because that's the institute within CIHR that provides the scientific leadership for the HIV/AIDS Research Initiative. And our scientific director for III, or the Institute of Infection and Immunity, is Dr. Marc Ouellette at Laval University. As many of you probably are well aware, CIHR is really undergoing quite an extensive range of changes. Those are really being implemented to deliver on the strategic plan for CIHR Health Research Roadmap that was developed in 2009. So we're just in our final year of the first Health Research Roadmap, and the organization is starting to transition and to develop the follow-up to that plan, Roadmap 2, we call it. So a lot of the changes that the vision was developed in the Roadmap 1 are really starting to be implemented now. So Roadmap 2 is focused on a couple of things. It will continue to ensure that those really significant changes in terms of how health research is going to be funded across the country are well implemented and carried through, but it's also an opportunity for the organization to regroup again and make sure that we're relevant for today as well as for the future of health research. So this is a draft still at this point. The plan won't be in effect until 2015, but these are the anticipated 3 strategic directions for CIHR moving forward. And what I pulled out there are the draft priority areas that we're anticipating to be incorporated into Roadmap 2. And I think it's really reassuring for us within the HIV initiative at CIHR. We really see the HIV initiative as being highly relevant to most, if not all, of these priorities for the organization overall moving forward. In terms of the HIV initiative at CIHR, it's really quite unique within the organization. There are 2 large federal strategies for HIV and AIDS that the Government of Canada supports. These initiatives support a number of different departments and agencies across the Government of Canada. The 2 initiatives are the Federal Initiative to Address HIV/AIDS in Canada and the Canadian HIV Vaccine Initiative. So CIHR's role within these broad federal strategies is really to manage the research component of those, and in particular the extramural research component that provides research funding to universities and hospitals across the country to ensure that a wide range of excellent research is conducted. So this is the funding that's available for HIV research within our initiative at CIHR. This is the strategic pot of funding that's available through the 2 initiatives. And it's divided into and managed through 5 different research funding streams that you see there. I do want to point out this represents only about half of CIHR's investments in HIV/AIDS research in a given year. The organization invests at least this amount again through the CIHR open competitions and strategic programs that are led by some of our other institutes as well. But this is a real opportunity for us to talk about today, for the next 5 years, really what are your ideas in terms of how CIHR should best invest this $23 million that's available moving forward. important context to understand is all of our institutes at CIHR, as well as our HIV/AIDS Research Initiative, are all guided by research advisory committees. So we have a committee that specifically advises us on our HIV/AIDS Research Initiative. It's called the CIHR HIV/AIDS Research Advisory Committee, or CHRAC for short. And you see the current membership there. This committee is absolutely instrumental in helping us decide what are the strategic priorities for the initiatives and how should we really best invest this funding. And I'm just going to ask the current CHRAC members that are in the room to stand up, please. I know there's a number of you. Thank you very much for coming out. And are there some previous CHRAC members in the room as well? Okay. The membership of this committee over the years has really been extraordinary. It's very diverse, it's very multidisciplinary, it cuts across different sectors, and it's extraordinarily collaborative in terms of its approach in helping us really be strategic with the investment of these funds. This is the committee, and as you'll hear throughout, this is going to be the committee that really takes all of the advice that we hear throughout our multiple consultation processes and really helps us develop the vision for the future. We worked with CHRAC really throughout 2007 to develop the first strategic plan for the initiative, which was in effect from 2008 to 2013, and actually over the last year it's really still continuing to guide us currently. In the previous strategic plan, we identified 6 different thematic priorities. These were the research priorities that were determined. In addition, within the strategic plan, we were really clear that we also wanted to invest in research that would have an impact on the target populations that were identified within the federal initiative. So in terms of how we've implemented that strategic plan and addressed those different priorities within it, there's been a number of different strategies that we've utilized to do that. One of our main mechanisms that we've been using over the last 10 years even is a mechanism called priority announcements. Priority announcements have really allowed us to leverage the open competitions at CIHR that are available to all areas of health research. But they've allowed us to invest some of the strategic money that's available in projects that were submitted to the open competition, were highly rated but not funded, and our HIV/AIDS research funding has been utilized to invest in a large number of research grants as well as training awards through these mechanisms over the years. In addition to that, to really supplement, I think, to complement that, has been some more targeted requests for applications that have been developed to address one or more of the priority research areas within our strategic plan. This is just a small example of the different types of tools that we've used in the past to really implement that strategic plan. And these initiatives have been developed with unique objectives and eligibility criteria to uniquely address each one of those priorities. So moving forward, as I said, our previous strategic plan officially expired in 2013, and what we're really so thrilled to have the opportunity to do today and throughout the conference actually is to talk to people about the vision for the future for the CIHR HIV/AIDS Research Initiative. And so we're just in the early stages of a process to develop that new strategic plan. We worked with our CHRAC committee early in the year to develop a process terms of reference with Mike, who I'll introduce in a minute, which really set out the process for how we were going to undertake this. And now we're in the second phase of this, where we're really starting to do some very broad national consultation. There's been some interviews conducted here at the conference. We held a couple of focus groups. We had the opportunity for this plenary session this morning, and we're going to be launching an online survey next week. So we're really hoping to hear from a large range and a large, diverse group of people. And I can't thank the conference organizers enough for really giving us this opportunity at the conference to do all of these different things. They've been extraordinarily helpful in helping us implement this. In terms of how that information is going to be used, as I said, we're going to take everything that we hear through this consultation process and really feed it into our research advisory committee at CIHR. And we'll have a workshop with them later in the fall to really work through that evidence, work through that advice that we've been given to develop that strategic vision for the next 5 years. We expect that the plan will be available early in 2015, and we'll start rolling out new strategic programs in order to implement that plan for the next 5 years. So lastly, this is just a slide of the Institute of Infection and Immunity overall at CIHR. You can see Dr. Mark Ouellette in the upper left there. As I said, Mark really provides the scientific leadership for the initiative at CIHR. He has a small team with him in Quebec City, at Laval. He has a small staff for the Institute overall in Ottawa. And then on the right-hand side, that shows the team, the 4 of us, that really work with Mark on the HIV/AIDS Research Initiative at CIHR. And we have a couple of new members in the team, but it's been a really extraordinary team. And I'm sure many of you know Jane, who's been with me here throughout the conference. And so I just want to encourage you to get in touch with the Institute staff and the initiative staff when you have any questions, and to really say this is a team that really makes it all happen behind the scenes at CIHR. So I'm now going to turn it over to Mike Tomlinson. Mike's with the consulting firm Strachan Tomlinson based in Ottawa, and that's the firm that the initiative has engaged to really help us get through this consultation process. They're going to do the analysis of everything that we've heard, and Mike is going to take us through the rest of the session this morning.
Okay, thanks, Jennifer. We have a sort of, this is sort of, we're going to move into more of the interactive part. So if anybody is snoozing in the back or is a little too hungover, just a fair warning, we're going to get into some questions. We're hoping to get as much input from people as possible. We're going to have 2 handheld mics. We're going to use these clickers, the audience response system, to try and get a general feeling about where the room is at on a few questions. So as interactive as possible. Just a note on the categories. You can only select one thing with this clicker. So we realize that there are going to be people who have multiple answers to these questions, or if we ask you, the first question is going to be about where you're involved in the HIV/AIDS research community. Certainly people are going to wear multiple hats, but let's ask you to bear with us and kind of through that format, you are going to have to select one thing. The categories are not meant to be definitive by any means. They're meant to sort of start the discussion. We're going to be recording people's comments in plenary. We'll be keeping track of what the responses to the questions are, and that's going to all get worked into the consultation process, as Jennifer mentioned, that's going to go to CIHR. I should also mention my role as an external person is to take care of the integrity of the process. So if we have interviews as an external person, that means that those interviews can be done confidentially. Same thing for the online survey, which is going to be launched next week. If you want to have an opportunity to give your opinion, or you know others who wish to contribute, that's a great place to be able to do so in a confidential way. Those answers don't go directly to CIHR, they go through our office. So let's move to a test question. And I've been working with AV, they've been very patient with me explaining these clickers. We're going to go for a test question. So you got a clicker on your table. If there's anyone who doesn't have one, you can just raise your hand. Are they all distributed? Does everybody have one? Can we get a few more here? Yeah, okay, so I'll just talk a little bit about how this works as we get those distributed. There's a power button at the bottom. Mine's on, but if your screen is blank, just hit that power button. And what you do when you see the question is you're going to select the option. I'm going to choose, well, I won't tell you what I'm going to choose. And then once your option is selected, you have to click send to send it in.
Do we have it?
Yeah, I'm just waiting a few clickers. Are we good to get started, Damien, in terms of this test one? So you select your option here once it goes up here, and then you hit 1, 2, or 3, or as the case may be, more, and then you hit send. It'll send it in. Mine says received. Everybody can just do that now, and we're going to get a pie chart out of it. It'll take about a minute or so as we do it, so actually just bear with us. We don't have too many questions, and like I said, we'll go to the floor afterwards for most of these. Everybody had a chance to enter that? I should mention you can also change your response if you like before the question has been closed, simply by just pushing the other option and hitting send. Okay, we good? How are we doing, Damien? Keep going? Oh yeah. The system is not quite coal-fired, but it moves a little bit slowly. So if you hear a chugging noise, that's the computer trying to figure this all out, and that's what we're doing now. Damien asked me if I knew any jokes, and I said that wasn't part of my job description for this contract. Maybe next time I'll do my best. Okay, so here we go.
The best advice I heard at the new investigator meeting was don't try to be funny if you're not, so I'll just sit here quietly too.
That's good. That's advice from a client to her consultant as well, if you can read between the lines there. So I'll have to try and respect that as well. So here we go. Where's our bar? Where's our chart? We'll get a percentage. Okay, so that's not working so well. I can assure you I tried this probably 2 or 3 times before, so it's amazing what can go wrong. Okay, I'm not going to take too much time. Is it not going to work, Damien? Should we leave you work on it? You want to try the next one? Okay, so like I said before, these are not meant to be definitive. If the questions don't work, I'll just read the questions out and we'll go to comments from the floor. That's just as interactive and we're happy with that. And like I said, we're going to record people's responses. So we can go to that next question, Damien. So we want to get a sense of, just like I said, we realize people wear multiple hats, but if you could pick, where is your primary involvement? If you had to pick one, which would it be? Community members, we have health professionals, 4 pillars of research. Give people another 30 seconds or so. It's difficult to choose one. Okay, so Damon, we can close that one. Let's see how it goes. The other thing about the questions is we're going to start with the next question too. We're going to ask about how CIHR has done in the past. This is why we have the heading looking back. Really, we're going to spend the most time today in the sort of the short hour we have trying to get a sense of where people want to see the initiative go. I don't remember AAAF being an option. I think we're going to have to let this go. Yeah. Yeah, hand raising. I love that idea. We have the most advanced system right here. Let's just go back. Okay, how about we get a raise of hands? How about community member? Who would choose that as primary? Just so we can get a good sense. Okay, we got a few. Okay, how about health professional? Few more. And now researcher biomedical? Well represented. Okay. It's funny, I swear it says biomedical on my sheet here.
Yes, it does. I can concur.
Researcher clinical? Few less, okay. Health systems and services researchers. Those must be the hardest part of yours. Social, cultural, environmental, and population and public health. Okay, also, well, you put your hand up twice. I know, I got you. I know it's a hard question. Okay, so Damien, if it's not working, we're just going to use the slides to show the questions. So let's go to number 2. So the previous CIHR HIV/AIDS Research Initiative Strategic Plan, there were 6 theme areas. I'm sure most people are familiar with these. What we want to know is, from your perspective, and we realize this is a bit of a blunt question, but in which theme area was the research initiative most effective? Do you want to try voting again, Damien, or are we going to let that go? Yeah? So let's try voting just one last time. We're going to ask for comments after this, too, for an example, so feel free to get those going, and we'll get the microphone circulating so we can hear from you. So which theme area was the research initiative most effective? Okay. I'll let it chug away here. So this will be good because we'll get people to talk, so that's fine. No work for Jane and for Let's see if it comes up. Okay, we're gonna let that one go too. I'm so hopeful here, right? Like I've seen this work. I saw it work last night, and I was harassing them, and we all lined up a whole bunch of clickers and tried it out. So let's go to the floor. We have 2 microphones ready to go. If you put up your hand, let's think about. The question we're thinking about here is, what is an example in your experience of a highly successful program for one of these? If you have an example of a not so successful program, we'd like to hear about that as well. Anybody want to comment on that? I want to know where the initiative did well in one of these SEAM areas, something where research funding from the CIHR, from the initiative, actually had an impact out there. Any comments?
Can I pick on people?
No examples of a successful program. There has to be one, or one that just didn't work. Something and lesson learned from that. So we think of something like a community-based research program that was effective, the Centers for Population Health.
Just over here.
Okay.
To your right, to your right.
Oh, there's Sam's over there.
I was wondering, I was gonna say CBR, but I don't know where that fits. So that's why we're struggling, I think.
Okay.
And also the iTrack, MTrack, like all the surveillance, those cohorts, I don't know where those go either. So that's,
In terms of where they fit in the theme area?
yeah, I didn't know which option those fit under.
So CBR, I definitely welcome comments on that. I mean, it's been a major program, although it doesn't fit within one of the research theme areas exclusively. It has been a major program that we've been investing our strategic funding in. So absolutely, would love to hear from you around CBR in terms of whether you thought that was particularly effective or not. In terms of the tracks, that's really funding managed by the Public Health Agency of Canada. And while there are some partnerships between the researchers that we fund and the tracks, that's not funding we're responsible for.
Okay. One here. And we got another question here in the middle for a mic when you get a second, guys.
My name is Wangari Tharao, and I don't know whether this is repetition because I went to a focus group. But to get the conversation going, I know because I'm located within community and I'm within CIHR, we can only apply for very few programs. I think for researchers located within community, CBR has been the CBR program has been one of the really successful one where we could access funding to actually look at issues that are relevant to the communities that we work with, or questions that are emerging from the communities that we actually work with. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, because the other programs are not open to us, we really can't lead projects and access funding from those other programs, other than the CBR program and the meeting grants and catalyst grants, I think. So those, for me, if you ask me, those have been very successful for people who are located within communities.
Okay, thank you. We had another question here.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I was a rapporteur for the presentation done about the CHIWAS CBR study, and it really resonated with me because I've been involved with 3 CBR programs in British Columbia, the first being the food security, the second our positive living, positive homes, and possibly the BC arm of the Canadian Stigma Index. And the first process, the food security was our initial attempt, and it was a rocky road, and there was a lot of backing and forthing, and I have a certain amount of resilience around that. Many of the initial PRAs fell by the roadside, and the contrast between how we were supported as the first rollout, I think that subsequent studies have learned about the amount of support, the amount of engagement early on in the process. This was basically given to us at the food security end as this is what you do, and none of us were involved in the planning.
Okay.
Positive Living, Positive Homes engaged us from the initial application process and has supported us. So we're moving in the right direction, and the CHUA study, I think, has really shown the light on that.
Well, it's nice to be able to have that kind of progress. Any other comments? Okay, well, let's take a look at the third question. We're going to start moving into our looking forward. Where do you think in these areas, we realize again, these are the broad, very high-level categories, but generally speaking, where do you think CIHR should focus in order to have the greatest impact? Let's forget the clickers. We'll go for a show of hands, but think about this for a bit. Again, this is a broad stroke, but if we think about providing direction, generally speaking, is there one area that should be, in your opinion, should be emphasized over others? So how about knowledge development? Who would put that as the first that should be emphasized? Hands, okay. Capacity building? Okay. Knowledge transfer? Okay. Partnership building? Now that's clear. That's very clear. Okay. Anyone put all of the above? We left this as an escape hatch for people. Yeah. Okay. So about equal between the first and the second. Okay. Let's go to number 4. If we think about that strategic pot of funds that Jennifer described that's available, which of the following areas has the potential for greatest impact? Now, I'm going to qualify this. I'll try not to do it too extensively, but what we meant to do with these categories here, these are not meant to be definitive. We're at the beginning of the consultation process, and we really are using these as a way to kind of start the conversation. These are a selection, not everything we heard in the focus groups, but some of the things we heard a few more times on Friday and Saturday, and we wanted to have an opportunity to kind of allow this group sort of reprocess some of these. We're trying to be responsive, and like I said before, this is for CIHR strategic HIV research funding. So which of the following has the areas for the potential for greatest impact? If we think about 5 years going forward, think about that for a second. We've got aging, comorbidities, co-infection, cure, most affected populations, prevention, program or implementation science, translational research, treatment cascade, or other. Other will ask for comments if there's one that should be brought forward. So let's start with aging comorbidities. Who would say that is the potential for the greatest impact? If we think in terms of a research funder directing funds to research. Okay? We're getting a good idea of how many. Okay. Co-infection. Okay. Cure. Twice. You too. You go. Twice. 3 times. Most affected populations. Again, yeah. Prevention. Okay. Program implementation science. Translational research. Treatment cascade. Okay, and other. I want to give people a chance to comment. So if you think about, I mean, we really want to hear from people just generally about this. What do they think about these categories? What have we missed? I will take an opportunity to promote the survey here as well. The survey is designed to line up really closely with what with the questions that we've asked in both the interviews, the focus groups, and today. So if there are people who aren't here today, or if you want to take more time to put your answers down, if there were answers you thought you wanted to answer more than once, the survey is a great place to be able to do that. And like Jennifer mentioned, that's going to be coming out next week. So I want to go to the floor about comments for this. Do people agree with this as a general list? What's missing? This is a terrible list. This is a great list. Let's see, we got a question in the back here.
Hi, thanks. Oh, geez, that's really loud. Sorry about that. So it's a great list. The question I really have is about definitional clarity. So, for example, you know, the way you would operationalize translational research might be different than the way I do, and so I think we actually need to have a shared dialogue on what this means. So, for me, the verbiage changes, but the expectations may remain the same. So I think we actually need to have some clarity on what we actually mean by these terms. Thank you.
Okay.
This is missing teams, and I think there's a fair amount of evidence that increasing numbers of publications, which would reflect knowledge output, are being done by larger groups of individuals. The concept of team building brings people together. It could bring people together with different disciplines from the different disciplines, and I think that may be an area that's missing from the list. It's again hard to tell, but
Is you thinking something like a team grant specifically there, like how things are funded?
precisely.
Okay, no, that's
targeting-
perfect, because that's a really good point, well taken. We're going to ask about some of the granting opportunities next, so there'll be an opportunity to discuss that further. Anything else we're missing? Yes? Is that on?
How's that? It's what I see, and I'm a layperson to all of the work we do. I'm an architect by training who's gotten into all of the issues that have been discussed at the conference late in life. I see a very clear pathway between, well, I'll work backward, from HIV infection, drug use, early childhood sexual trauma, and I'm not sure we're dealing with, going forward, the effect of early childhood sexual trauma as, moving into drug use, HIV infection. And I did 35 food security surveys. 30 of the interviewees were both, well, they were all HIV positive, of course. They all had past or present involvement with the drug community, and they were all survivors of childhood sexual trauma.
That's an interesting point and a great comment. One of the things we've been hearing in the focus groups and also in the interviews as well is that one of the challenges for funding is that HIV seems to be now something that comes with a bunch of other things. It's much more difficult to separate it and say, I just need funding for this one small thing that's HIV/AIDS, whereas it seems to be part of a bundle of other things where if you find them, you'll also find it. It's a real challenge, I think, for the funders to try and pull that out. Yeah, we heard that a lot in focus groups.
This kind of speaks to the comment about the vagueness of the definitions, and I'm not sure exactly what falls under most affected populations, but maybe a focus on women's issues, pregnancy, reproductive issues, things that are more specific in women, because there's been several comments, but particularly in the last session, about the poor representation of women in, industry-sponsored trials and so on. So I think there's maybe a space for and if you want to be politically correct, you could just say gender-specific issues or, something like that.
Okay. Any further comments? Yeah, we got one here. Go
Oh, I'm not sure also where we would place this, but I think there is the question of addressing the global epidemic,
Okay.
and what the place of Canada as a nation, what the role Canada is supposed to play in addressing the global epidemic of HIV/AIDS.
Okay, good point. Any further comments before we move on? We're going to look at the funding opportunities and effectiveness. Okay, so let's go to the next question, Damien. So, of the following funding tools, which has the most potential for future impact? This is the question we were talking about, just got touched on with the team grants earlier. Again, we realize these are kind of tough categories just to pick just one. There's in all likelihood going to be a variety of funding mechanisms that are appropriate at different times and for different people. But generally speaking, where would people sit on this? Which has the most potential for future impact in the next few years? The smaller grants? Yeah. Larger, mid-size, operating grants? Okay. The large team grants? Knowledge dissemination grants? Training awards? And then other, again, we'd like to hear if there are other types of grants that we're missing. I mean, feel free to give direction to CIHR here. I mean, this is a sort of an opportunity to say we could be more effective in, you could be more effective in funding. Something's being missed. Any comments? Got two here at this table.
And I'm hearing an echo of my voice, so it's a little scary, but anyhow, I'll just start talking quickly. But I teach a lot of undergrad students. What I find, I'm not looking for funding for them, but what's missing, I think, is that you ask them if they know about CIHR, and probably about one or two know of it, and that's because they've had information in another class. And it would be nice to get awareness about CIHR in general out to the general public, and also to at least to undergraduate students at the very least, or the affected community in a better way. Mm-hmm. And so that's not a granting idea, but it's certainly something that should be done, I think, just for the success overall, because as Canadians, we need to know about these kind of things if the funding is going to continue in the long term.
Is there someone in particular that they would know about that's doing a better job of that? I mean, if they're applying for this type of research funding, who are they going to?
So I mean, if I'm looking at the general public, right, in general, I don't think they know much about what funding is, and what they will know about are the obscure things that don't make sense and that are brought up as sort of examples in terms of research. And I think it's important for them to know. I like some of the work that's being done. I mean, this is a frustration that I have at a general level, not just with CIHR.
Okay, thank you. We had a few comments over here.
Well, I would think that as a funder, having a repertoire of choices really broadens your ability to have a number of things underway. I think we've heard at this meeting, for example, that these small catalyst grants really helped initiate a lot of people. For example, in the vaccine session that was held in the first one. The large team grants, I think, again, this is something that's moving forward. And you do have to train people to feed into the system. So it would seem that you should have a repertoire. I don't know that, picking one of these is going to help address and answer questions.
Yeah, and it's just one of the things that we had the challenge of. We did want to use the clickers to try and get a sense of where people were at, but we really were trying to start a conversation here, not to say CIHR's only, the recommendation to Chirac is to only fund catalyst grants. Really was not our intention. I want to ask you though, is there an opportunity that you see missing? Like, you're talking about having a repertoire, being able to target, being able to be flexible to the needs of the community in terms of research funding. Is there one that you see as being missing?
Well, I don't know if you're speaking
This table's
to me.
got a mic monopoly.
But I would think, well, what you are beginning to introduce that I think is also going to open up Canadian science to the world is the opportunity to collaborate with individuals in other countries.
Mm-hmm.
So unlike, let's say, the NIH, which has programs in that ballpark, Canada's in its infancy at introducing them. And I think that can benefit Canada in multiple ways, particularly with the partnerships. So for example, I've been part of the CAPTAIN Network, a Canada-Africa Prevention Trials Network, and that has brought African investigators with Canadian investigators to work together to train, cross-train, to open up new cohorts of people globally where the problem is a major problem. So that's something I think that CIHR could become more of a global participant than purely a national participant.
Okay. That's a great comment, certainly in line from things that we've heard earlier.
I'd just add career awards. CIHR doesn't do enough for career awards.
I was going to say that.
It's a pylon. It's a pylon. I just want to go to a comment over here, and there's one in the back there as well.
I don't know where this fits in this particular slide because, again, my experience is fairly limited, and it comes in working with both an ASO that's community-based and sitting on the board of the Pacific AIDS Network, which is our amalgamation of community-based organizations. But it's hard for me to imagine where the voice of somebody who is HIV positive in any of these grant sizes, categories, streams would not be a useful member of the team and in some way to engage us. I'm not a scientist, but I have benefited. I'm alive because of pharmaceuticals, and I was in the first clinical trial of Crixivan when I still lived in the United States, and it saved my life. So I have an experience of that. Mm-hmm. And I think everybody who has been infected, whether they're long-term survivors like myself, I was actually infected in 1980, and it's just a quirk of my life that I know this. But recent people who are newly diagnosed, I think our voices in some way need to be incorporated in every stage of this small, large knowledge systemization, etc.
Okay, thank you.
I was going to suggest, as a kind of relating to what Wangari mentioned earlier, kind of innovative type of funding opportunity that could support scholars to be embedded within community organizations. It builds on the impact that we've seen the CBR program have over the years, and also addresses, I think, a gap related to training awards, which is that we have a whole bunch of incredible emerging HIV researchers, but not a whole lot of positions for them within academic institutions. But they could have a lot of impact if they're supported to work within community organizations and build community-based and community-driven research programs.
Okay, that's another point we've heard come up several times in the focus group, so it's well taken. I think you had a comment, I believe, right? Could we get a mic right here?
Earlier, you asked for an example of a research program that's well known to undergraduate students.
Mm-hmm.
And one example that I'm familiar with is the NSERC Undergraduate Research Awards.
Okay.
Those are extremely well promoted, and the promotion that's done is basically the form of just sending out an email to the departmental secretaries, who will then do all the work of reminding students when to apply and what the criteria are. And that seems to work very well. And I've done some undergraduate research work, and while I was doing that, I found that the sizing of the grant is extremely important. Basically, as a person who's doing that research alone, there's no way I could have spent all the money that had been allocated, but that extra money wasn't enough to hire a second person to do extra research to spend that extra money. And so as you're setting funding thresholds, I think it's important for different types of grant to include a certain amount of flexibility and possibly to adjust the sizes based on specific research proposals.
I was about to say having enough money left over is a good problem to have, but you couldn't do anything with it. So, any other comments on the granting or how CIHR can be most effective with funding? The comment at the back.
Sorry, it's early for me because we got home late. It's not my fault. I'm here with a bunch of students, so it's their fault. So I just want to go back in time. I'm just having a moment of clarity about the sort of thematic areas, and just to sort of call the white elephant in the room a big old white elephant, is around harm reduction. So, we've heard lots of discussion about harm reduction, both in terms of primary and secondary prevention. But again, it's just like evaluation. The E word is not fundable, and neither is harm reduction. So I think there actually has to be more clarity. Again, this is back to my earlier point about sort of conceptual and definitional clarity. We have to talk about harm reduction if we're actually going to do an effective job at both primary and secondary prevention of HIV in this country. So I think that if we could go back to the earlier slide and actually figure out how that fits in, I would assume everybody in this room embeds some kind of harm reduction approach. Okay, I'll just speak for the social scientists maybe, that they actually have that embedded in their research methodology. And so I think that's an important shared understanding that at its very core, harm reduction needs to be in there. And I'd also just like to mention, particularly in relation to other organizations that receive federal funding to address HIV, and I'm thinking particularly about corrections. So again, those are two sort of parallel universes, harm reduction and prison, primary and secondary prevention within prison, I think need to be addressed. And again, it's, Jennifer Gunning, you do a fantastic job, and I appreciate this open discussion and forum, but I do think there are a couple of pieces that over the last 30 years we have not particularly done a terrific job in showing leadership around harm reduction, for example. So.
Do you want to talk about some of the opportunities with corrections in the FI? No? Not right now. Okay. Thanks for that. Any other comments about this? Effectiveness? Got one more? Oh, you look like you were volunteering, though. No, I'm just kidding. All good? Okay, well, thanks so much for your comments. Really, consultation is such a big part of how CHRAC operates, about how CIHR operates, and really thanks for taking the time to be part of this. I will mention the survey one more time. It's going to be launching next week. It's sort of a time, it'll take about 10 or 15 minutes to do. If you know people whose voices need to be heard, if you know people who have an opinion, if you want to sit down and redefine the categories, that's a really great opportunity to do so. Just mention that. And like I said, those are confidential and they go through me. And I'll turn it over to Jennifer.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mike. So just in closing, again, I wanted to thank all of you for coming. We are really very passionate about just having a very open dialogue around this. We're dedicating the whole month really to hear from you and stakeholders across this country to really provide a lot of information and evidence into CHRAC that they will really carefully consider this fall. So thank you, all of you, for taking the time this morning to have your voice heard, and just like Mike already did, just encourage you to participate in other ways as well and encourage your colleagues to do so. And again, thank you to the conference organizers for giving us the opportunity throughout the conference to hold these consultation sessions. I think they'll be really extremely valuable to CIHR and CHRAC in moving forward, and really ensuring that this funding that's available for HIV/AIDS research can really have the most positive impact on the epidemic, definitely here in Canada and internationally as well.
Okay.
you guys hear me? Yeah. So now comes the very fun part of the conference, giving away the new investigator awards. But first, I just want to say that it's a bit of a bittersweet moment for me after chairing the conference. You can't believe how happy I am that we're actually at the end. But it was an amazing time. When I woke up Thursday morning and I saw the sun was out, I was unbelievably happy. At least there's going to be at least one sunny day when people will get to see the city. And I think that really, for me, it set the tone for the whole conference. It just got better from there. The science was great, as always, and I'm not taking any credit for that. The scientific program committee was great. And especially after last night, when I thought about it, it was different for me working at the conference this year as opposed to attending, but I realized why I enjoy going to CAHR every year. I actually like the people that come to CAHR and hanging out with the people. And last night, I think, was excellent. I had a wonderful time, and I hope everybody else had a wonderful time who went on the gala. And I think that really set CAHR apart for me. It was a great time, and I love all the people in CAHR. It is almost like hosting your family, your extended family, for a weekend in St. John's. It was a great time for me. So I'm going to award the new investigators now, starting with basic science. And so for basic science, the award goes to Allison Land. If you want to come up, Allison, we have a little something in an envelope for you. We get a picture with. The winner for clinical science is Louise Hélène Gagnon. I guess Louise has already gone home to catch the flight somewhere. Social sciences, the winner is Allison Carter. Congratulations, Allison. And for epidemiology and public health sciences, the results are not quite in yet, but if still counting, it was obviously a very difficult decision. There were so many great presentations, but if they do manage to contact the person and work it out before in the near future, the check will be available at the registration desk. There will be a winner, and we will announce it and post it on the website beforehand. Thank you. I'll turn it over to Dr. Kelly.
So I just wanted to share with you a little story about how we first heard that we were going to be hosting CAHR in St. John's, Newfoundland. About maybe 3 or 4 days before we left to go to Vancouver for CAHR last year, Kim Burt, the nurse practitioner in our clinic, was being the eager beaver that she is, she downloaded the conference program and noticed on the back cover that it was announced that CAHR 2014 was going to be in St. John's, Newfoundland. So to say that we were terrified, hesitant, scared, is putting it mildly. Jonathan spent the time in Vancouver talking me off the ledge, and that was before Mike even asked me to co-chair the conference. We're a small group here. There's very few of us actually working in HIV. So the idea of hosting this conference for all of you seemed quite insurmountable at the time. But as Michael said, this is quite a bittersweet moment. CAHR is run like a well-oiled machine. The conference is handled really, really well, and it's thanks to Sea to Sky. So I just wanted to recognize, first off, Sandy and Ian for all of their hard work and all of the other Sea to Sky staff, because truly they just tell us what to do when, and we fill in the blanks, and they do all the hard work. So it's been a pleasure. Just a few other thank yous that I wanted to make at this time. We had a fabulous scientific planning committee. You know, all of the track co-chairs were amazing to work with, the community representatives. It was so easy, and we kept being told by Sea to Sky, you guys are so ahead of your deadlines. And I think it's because we had such a great crew to work with. So thank you so much. It's truly been a pleasure. All of the abstract reviewers, the track session co-chairs, the presenters, the volunteers that helped us out here at the conference, again, our deep felt thanks. Obviously, we couldn't have done it without the sponsors and the supporters. So again, a round of applause, please, for all of the supporters and the sponsors for the conference. And I know everyone was a little bit disappointed at the gala last night, but I think we should thank McCarthy's Parties anyway. They put off a great gala for us. I think the feedback and the low numbers in the seats early this morning were probably testament to the great time that we had last night. So, and last but not least, the CAHR office staff. Andrew, Shelley, and Aaron were a dream to work with as well. So, I just wanted to remind you of a couple of other quick housekeeping things. Your feedback on the conference, what you liked, what you didn't like, suggestions for future conferences. We would really value that, that feedback. So within the next few days to a week or so, you'll all be receiving a conference evaluation form. We really encourage you to take just a few minutes to fill that out and send it back, because your input is taken into account by the planning committee for next year's conference, for planning not only the program, but the ideas for plenary and so forth. So please take the time to do that. And then I guess just thanks to all of you for coming out. You know, as Michael said, it does feel like a family, and it's great to see the same faces every year and the new ones that come as well. And I realize St. John's, Newfoundland is not the easiest spot in the world to get to, and we did lose, fortunately, just a very small number of people due to flight issues, but I know a number of people did have challenges, and thank you for persevering and taking the time to come. We couldn't have done it without having you here, and we were absolutely thrilled with the attendance this year. I think probably exceeded everyone's expectations for St. John's, Newfoundland. And then finally, I just wanted to say thanks to Michael for asking me to co-chair the conference with him. I've been coming to CAHR since 1999, and while I knew, you know, everybody's kind of got their clicks, this year has really given me an opportunity to know more about the organization and to meet so many more of you, and it's truly been a great privilege and pleasure to help host this conference. So thank you very much. Safe travels, and we'll see you next year. Bob, did you want to say a few words?
I just have a few closing notes, and I just want to start off by thanking Debbie and Michael. Can we give them a round of applause? I greatly appreciate the work that they've done, and doing that job last year, I realize how much they have done over the last year, and I'm sorry we didn't give you more notice than a couple of days. We didn't put your names on the program, which was good. But anyhow, and the other thing I would like just to thank everyone for attending this morning after last night's gala. I know how hard that is. And yes, you did kiss a fish, but anyhow. And also, I have two other notes, and the next one is just I hope to see everyone in Toronto. We have the next CAHR is in 2015, obviously, from April 30th to March 3rd. No, that's May 3rd. Andrew? Yeah. So we'll go do that one again, April 30th, 2015 to May 3rd, 2015. And before we go, we have just a short promotional video from IAS 2015.
Hi, I'm Premier Christy Clark. On behalf of the Government of British Columbia, I look forward to Vancouver hosting IAS in 2015. British Columbia is working hard in response to the HIV crisis. We established the BC Centre for Excellence in HIV/AIDS in Vancouver to deliver the best treatment and care for British Columbians. And we've established harm reduction programs and the supervised injection facility Insight, the only one of its kind in North America. In partnership with Dr. Julio Montaner, we pioneered the treatment as prevention strategy to stop AIDS and work to eliminate HIV transmission. We provide thousands of HIV-positive British Columbians with free life-saving treatment, and we're expanding testing, access, and medications for high-impact groups and hard-to-reach populations as well. We're seeing results. We've reduced HIV-related morbidity and mortality by over 90%, and we've decreased new HIV diagnoses by 2/3. I'm proud that the treatment as prevention strategy has been endorsed by UNAIDS, and that jurisdictions around the world are moving towards this approach. The newly released WHO guidelines represent a huge step for HART globally. Based on our successful treatment as prevention strategy, we're exploring this approach for viral hepatitis, and we hope that we can be just as successful in combating it as we have been with HIV/AIDS. British Columbia remains committed to bringing science and policy together, an approach we look forward to sharing with you in 2015. In 1996, Vancouver hosted the 11th International AIDS Conference and introduced HART, changing the face of HIV forever. It was a transformative moment. I hope you'll join Julio and myself in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia at the 2015 conference and help make HIV history. Thank you.
So we don't have a promotional video for CAHR next year, but now Jonathan will do a jig. Anyhow, I just wish everyone safe travels and thank you for coming again. So take care and see you in Toronto.